and be able to introduce our speaker this evening, whom I have known since our days in high school. It's a pleasure to be able to introduce her. This evening's speaker is Lana K. Bruggen. Lana K. is a Boone County native who attended school through the Boone County school system, graduating from Boone County High School. After graduation, she worked at the corporate office for Palm Beach Company as executive account manager, and currently she is employed as a sales representative for Creative Storm Marketing Company. Lana K. became interested in Boone County history after attending Boone County Historical Society meetings with her mother, Osceola Edwards, a longtime member of the Society. I diverge just a moment to thank both Osceola and Lana for their always continued support in donating items when we have our museum weekends at our museum in Burlington. Lana produces the public access talk show, Have Your Say with Lana K, through Insight Cable Television. And if you're not familiar with the program, I would recommend it highly, especially her programs on local Boone County history. Lana, thank you for your hard work. It's all yours.
Hello? Here we are. I won't need this for my thank yous, and I'd like to get them out of the way first. Librarians at the Florence branch are my friends. They're Jasbir Chahal and Julie Mocksteiger. They found research that was for librarians only on that long arm that only the library has. Courtney Phillips, my niece, she did some great research. Marianne Utini is Dr. Sperti's cousin. She is with us tonight, and she gave me great family history and photos. Stella Bear, great family pictures. She grew up on the Sperti farm. Cheryl Hensley, she was with Dr. Sperti later in life. Hello, nice to see you. And she had great memories. Bill Torbeck. He let me photograph his house. That's very important because that's Dr. Sperti's old home. Steve Conrad organized the PowerPoint. Couldn't have done it without him. Put all these pictures together. So I'm going to try to go fast. I know I've been at these things where everybody goes to sleep and then wakes up and they say, oh my God, she's still there. Or you see the pizza guy coming in, bad side. So I'm going to try to go fast, but he was amazing, and it's hard, you know, to not, I mean, this is a one-time deal, and it's rather long, but so is his career. So without further ado, now, are we with it? Is it too much? Are you with me? This presentation is a glimpse, and I mean a glimpse, into the life of George Sperry Sperti, world-renowned scientist and inventor who lived in Burlington, Kentucky, and led an extraordinary life. Okay, so now we begin. George Sperry Sperti was born in Covington, Kentucky, January 17, 1900. He was the son of Italian immigrant parents. His father, Giorgio Antonio Sperti, and his mother, Carolina Sperry. The Spertis have a daughter, Mildred, 2 years older than George, and it's important to understand these children were extremely important to each other all through their lives. They remained together always, and they were completely devoted to their parents, and they held them in the highest regard. Now in the new country, the parents Americanized their names. Giorgio becomes George, Carolina becomes Caroline. Are you hearing me? And the Spertis own 2 dry cleaning shops. One is on 8th Street, and that's where the family lives, above this shop, and one is on Scott Street. George is educated through the Covington Public School System. He attends First District Elementary and later Covington High. Covington High is Holmes High. Now, let's take a look at some family pictures to familiarize you with the family. Okay, this is already not working. There is George Sr., Giorgio Sr., now George. This is George when he's a little boy.
Nobody back here can see anything, sorry.
This is his mother. We don't have a young picture of her. She's older here, and she's the lady on the right.
The lady on the left is her sister.
And the lady on the left is her sister, Mrs. Grover. There's George again with these umbrellas, the little boy. This is Mildred in her darling little dress with her little bow in her hair. Here they are, maybe teenagers, early 20s, always together. Here they are with Mama. There was great love in that family, and the Spertis projected that throughout their lives. Everyone loved them. Everyone that knew them loved them. This is a postcard that George writes to that aunt you saw with the mother. Dear Aunt, I miss you so much. I wish your machine were working so you could come and visit me. I know some people remember when we called the car the machine. That's Pike Street. George would have been about 17 years old in that picture. They love to picnic. This is a picnic in Dry Ridge. George is eating something. He's seated. Mrs. Sperti is in the left, standing with her hand on her hip, and that's George Sr. in the hat. A family would picnic in Dry Ridge. George loved fish when he was a boy. He's caught a lot of fish there. This is his dad. Now, I thought he was throwing those fish on the shotgun, but he didn't. He's holding the gun, and he has a string of fish showing he's a great outdoorsman. And then this is George, maybe when he's a senior, we're not sure, but it's probably his graduation picture. Okay, now this is where it starts to get interesting. Everything seems pretty normal up to this point. It was all about to change. After graduating high school, George entered the University of Cincinnati's Cooperative Education Program. His major, electrical engineering. He is co-oping with Union Gas and Electric, and he soon learns that at this time, it's 1921, there is no meter or other means of accurately measuring the amount of electricity flowing into large industrial plants. The problem was extremely involved, and the best engineering minds in the country are working on this problem, including Edison. So George ponders the problem for about 2 years, and he was positive he could solve it, but the supervision at Union Gas and Electric, that's what it was called then, would just not listen. It's like, kids, you can't possibly know, you know. You just couldn't know. So he decided to build the meter. Low on funds, he began gathering parts from used meter piles. He took his mother's breadboard, which we have here tonight, believe it or not, to use as a base. Brass tacks from the dining room chair disappeared. He found, those were his bearings. He found used dials and armatures, and for days he hammered, he screwed, and he soldered. And after checking and rechecking a complicated mathematical equation, trust me on that one, he began the test. Now he could not use electricity as his meter was for the super volumes, so he turned the meter by hand. 1,000 times per load, he turned that handle way up into the night, and when he finished, his gauges were exactly where his slide rule said they would be. George Sperti, at the age of 21, had invented a meter that the best engineering minds in the country could not do. It is called the kilovolt ampere polyphase power factor meter. I'm not going to say it again. It's known in the industry as the kVA meter, and we'll take a look at it now. How's that? Made on that breadboard that we have with us tonight. It is the measurement used today, 90 years later, for large volume electrical measurement. Westinghouse Electric buys the invention. Some say it was $30,000, some said 50. Different articles were different on this, but some said it went back to research. I think he kept the money. He gave a great interview to an Italian magazine. They were so proud of him, the Italian people, and that seemed accurate to me. He said, I kept the money this time, not so much for myself, but for my parents. And I know how they adored their parents, and I think that's what happened. So he graduated with his degree in electrical engineering. He works 1 year
at Union Gas and Electric, works another year at Duncan Electric, and this really isn't getting it because he wants to research. He wants to be more of a free agent. So lucky for him, Dr. Herman Schneider, he wants to set up a research laboratory at UC, and he is the president of UC. And guess who he wants to run it? George Sperti. He wants him to be the director. So Dr. Sperti agrees, and UC's Basic Science Laboratory is formed, and there isn't much funding available. George really has a tough time at the beginning of his life. The laboratory received $7,000 from UC. Dr. Sperti supplied about $18,000 from consulting fees. And the researchers were all young and energetic, and the research lab became a very exciting place. Now they're working out of what was a dark room in the basement of Old Cunningham Hall before moving to an attic in the McMicken building. There was one article I read, Genius in the Attic. Okay, Old Cunningham Hall is the building to the right, and then they moved to the attic in the center building. That's McMicken Hall, UC. Now here's where it all got interesting. Dr. Sperti is sent an enzyme used in the baking industry. It was contaminated with a virulent mold. Can you dissolve the mold, leaving the enzyme intact? And don't bother with ultraviolet light because we've already tried that, it won't work. But Dr. Sperti didn't believe that. And after weeks of trying different filters, he said, I got just the right band of light to knock out the mold without harming the enzyme. They were using the whole spectrum. It was way too powerful. So he thought, well, after all my hard work, I'm not going to just send that back. First, I'm going to begin applying for patents covering just about anything you can do with ultraviolet light. So the process is called selective irradiation. That's Dr. Sperti at the Basic Science Laboratory. He is sitting there, of course, sort of looking down on your right. It took 2 years for him to perfect this process. It enriches, it purifies milk, it can enrich it with vitamin D, and Dr. Sperti was paid $300,000. This is a huge sum of money at that time by General Foods, which he turned over to the university, and he said, I got 2 shares in 2 companies, one of which became the Sperti Lamp Company. Again, Dr. Sperti and his researchers struggling in an ill-equipped attic, produced through creative effort, round-the-clock work, and a spark of genius. Let's don't forget that. The selective irradiation. Now, he worked with light all his life. It was very important in his work. This process sterilizes food, it enriches food products, it detoxification of vaccines, and I'd like to say here, he also developed a line of therapeutic lamps based in the field of gaseous discharge, the Sperti sun lamp. Now first, I think there it is, and good work. At first, this sun lamp, it went on to produce a tan, but at first, Dr. Sperti was all about just helping people, and at first, this was just created to help with rickets and those type of diseases, anemia, rickets, and tuberculosis. So now we move on to 1935. George was getting a little restless at the Basic Science Laboratory, so he is contacted by the Most Reverend John McNicholas, the Archbishop of Cincinnati. Now, the Archbishop had an ambitious plan in his mind to create the Athenaeum of Ohio, a graduate school of scientific research and education, the Institutum Divi Tomei, under the patronage of the great St. Thomas Aquinas, the great thinker of the 13th century. Now also, the Most Reverend wanted the establishment of cooperative assistance at Catholic research laboratories and affiliated colleges and hospitals.